how do you become the next Liquid Death then? How do you differentiate
What do you
within
mean
your own
liquid death?
There's in one of your articles, you spoke about the Liquid Death, the brand of water.
Oh, liquid
Yeah.
death. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it.
How do you differentiate and become the next Liquid Death? Because if marketing is so like deeply entrenched into what business is, how do we become different?
Right. And I think like I think a good caveat or something good to like call out before jumping into answer that is that um to some degree some brands should totally like do what they're doing, and sometimes they are fine like not having to like stand out. Like, and I want to say that because I think like there's this conversation around like everybody has to like try to be different, etc., which I think it's true to some degree, but like I think also if everybody is like extremely different, obviously like that's extremely difficult also on the consumer to kind of like pick their brain. um I do think to some degree that like in order to kind of like grab attention, because nowadays like a consumer, you, me, we are exposed to like millions of services a day, like TikTok, the phone, the computer, email, billboards on the street. Like we're hyper saturated with content already. So obviously like we tend to have this phenomenon that is called banner blindness, where you kind of like start ignoring or even not perceiving all the ads around you or all the marketing messages around you, etc., because most of them sort of like blending together, because most of them are things that you've seen some sort of variation at some point, or you've seen basically those ideas being repeated throughout time in some sort of variation, you know. So having said that, I think like the way Liquid Death sort of was able to kind of like stand out, it's mainly at looking at the category as a whole. You know, like you can take a look at the whole category and sort of like find patterns really easily. Like if you look at the category of like water, you know, water in a store, they're all sort of like talking about purity. They're all talking about like the source of the water and how like healthy it is. They're all talking about like maybe the mineral level of it, but they're all mainly talking about like the functional aspect of it and like the source. And that's the whole conversation around water, like forever. There's very few brands that are trying to do very different things like charcoal activated water or things like that, but that's changing the product. And that's not marketing. You know, marketing is basically like you don't touch the product and then you try to see like how you make it stand out. So I think like what they did really well is they looked at the category, noticed that everybody was talking about a very specific type of way, which makes it so that like when you go to like a grocery store, all the waters are sort of like substitutes of each other and you can just grab any of them. Um, so they kind of like went in with the idea of like doing things different from like all sides, not just from like the way that they would talk, copy, but they would also from like the way that the product was going to look like next to the rest of the bottles on the water aisle at the superstore. Like if you just like the packaging alone could just have been the full differentiator, right? Because like you're not normally exposed to like water in a can, etc. But they decided like, hey, you know what? We're gonna stand out and make a brand that is impossible to ignore just because we're gonna be edgy. We're gonna like people already trust water. They know like if water like if the health department is allowing us to bottle this water, it's probably okay, right? So why should we talk about purity or any of that? Let's just talk about how edgy we are, how it's like fuck plastic. It's all about sort of like that type of mentality. So they went with this really like uh, identity of like hard punk rocker death metal type of vibe, which is also expressed in their can and like the influencers that they get for their campaigns. You know, they get like
Yeah,
tattoo
their influencers
artists,
are they're insane. They had like a
they get
porn
like
star.
porn stars, like drummers from rock bands. They have like even like satanic cult leaders, like all sorts of like crazy things. But it's all it kind of like raises the presence of the brand more.